you're not going to have the life that you see on people's Instagram straight away. It took me to go to Australia to find out the person that I am today. Everyone's journey is going to be different, and not everyone's going to want to stay as long as you. I don't recognise that girl that got on that flight 7 years ago. It was like military stuff where he had us all in a circle and we were like holding one another. The snow is beaten down. You're walking in the snow and your feet are raw. And there's a huge alcohol and drug problem and gambling problem in Australia. But it gets to a point in your life where you think, does this make me feel any better?
How's it going, Pete? Welcome back to another episode of the Here's the Crack podcast. Another guest episode today. We've got Caroline. How are you?
Hi guys.
There she is.
Thank you so much.
Is it good?
It's really nice to be here. I'm sorry it's taken so long.
It's all good.
It's been a bit of a hectic year.
Yes, and I'm sorry I've harassed you for so long.
I appreciate it. It makes me feel like I must be important, that you want me on the podcast. Hope I can deliver today.
Tommy was like, give it up, and I was like, never.
It's like, Jesus, Ross,
She's
this
time
is
to
the
climb
100th
this
message
out,
today,
and she's time to come on the podcast.
Persistency is key. Honestly, I am embarrassed that we've been chatting since February.
It's all good. It's all good. Our time management with 3 full-time jobs never really suits some people, so it's understandable. It's fine. But we've got here in the end. But for most people who obviously are living under a rock, maybe don't know you, you are also known as a County Down Under. You do a podcast yourself.
Yeah, it's funny whenever people call me that. I'm like, that's not my name.
Do people
Caroline.
like stop you on the street and go, "Are you County Down Under?"
Yeah.
They have no idea who you are.
It's really weird, and a lot of people don't read the handle of my Instagram properly, so they think it's an accountant down under and all these different names.
Have a look at my books.
Yeah, or there's like a penny drop moment where they're like, right, County Down Under. So yeah, my name's Caroline, and I love the way you're like, people who live under a rock. I'm not really like a big person, like I'm just a normal person. I just happened to find it, like Instagram just came about by accident. I'm just a teacher. I moved to Australia 8 years ago, and I decided when I was over there to try and be a bit more honest about Instagram, about social media, about life living abroad. Like, we can be very, I don't know, we can show just the highlights of all of our lives, but I think especially when you live abroad, we're very prone to just showing the golden beaches and the partying and the lifestyle. But there was a lot of suffering going on behind the screens of so many expats living over there. A lot of alcohol problems, drug problems, depression. There was a few suicides as well. Because we are so isolated and away from our family, and we don't have the community to turn to. So I kind of wanted to be a good role model for my students. I'm a secondary teacher, and I could see the kind of role models that they were looking up to, which was the likes of Kylie Jenner and, you know, women that were on OnlyFans. This is what my teenage students were looking up to, and I could see the anxiety and eating disorders that were coming from it. And I thought, you know, I need to be honest with these girls, because I was lucky that I didn't have to grow up in a world with social media. What we had was Bebo and MSN Messenger. And do you remember the addictions, coming home from school and going straight on to MSN chat? You know, and now like these kids, there's no switch off point with social media. So I decided during lockdown in Australia to record a 15-minute podcast, start an Instagram page, and just say, you know, life isn't all of what you see online. I'm in a relationship where it looks like I'm really happy, but I've been really unhappy for a long time. I'm not happy in Australia. I miss my family. It can be really lonely over here. And I thought no one would ever listen because I didn't have a following. I wasn't anybody. And I recorded the podcast. I had 10 followers on Instagram. And I went into my bed that night and I remember thinking, thank God no one's ever going to hear that, because that's like reading your diary. It was so open and raw. And within a week, the podcast had blown up all over the world. And I was like, oh God. And that's really, we're 3 years down the line, and I only just recently took a break from teaching. I was full-time teaching the whole time, but just trying to be an advocate for anybody online that they could be a bit more relatable to everything that's going on. So I be honest, but sometimes it gets me in trouble because I'll be so honest.
Have you got have you been like sort of pulled up or any messages and stuff? I suppose you get messages all the time if you're like given, because a lot of your content's like advice on like
a lot of messages from you.
Sorry, but like I suppose like a lot of your content is like your perception on things. Like you're good at sort of saying, you know, people look at this like this, but I look at it like that. I suppose people are messaging all the time being like, well, you're wrong. Yeah, you
get that. And I mean, I put up the other day about, I think, breath work and more education around mental health should be in the curriculum. And one angry teacher wrote back and said, where do you expect us to find the time to teach this? And I was thinking, I'm a teacher too. Like, I don't think she realizes what I'm saying is we might not need to learn about photosynthesis, and we could maybe talk about breathing better for anxiety to start with. But more a case of when I was in a relationship, you know, I would be honest about having an argument with my partner just so people knew that it's not a picture perfect relationship. And I was trying to help others, but then like when your partner sees that you've said, we've just had an argument and like everything's grand now, but they're not so happy. So it can be really difficult to try and be open and honest, but the people in your life can be very impacted by what you do. And my family don't like to be on my Instagram. So it's very hard to get that balance of showing your real life but also not giving away too much. It's a very double-edged sword, Instagram.
What is that like though? Like I think like Sinead Haggerty sort of talked a bit about that when we had her on, about like she likes to be really open, and I think when she was in a relationship at the time we recorded it, she was like talking about, like she'll talk about her boyfriend and stuff, and I'm just like, I think like if you were thinking about it yourself, you'd be like, oh, would you really want that? Like, is that difficult to talk, like when you do that? Or are you like, oh, I'm going to post this? Yeah,
Sinead's amazing. And her and I actually spoke because we both were like at the end of our relationship together, and it was a very public relationship. I mean, Sinead's got a huge profile compared to me, but both of us were going through a breakup around the same time. And I remember her, like, we were texting and I said to her, you know, it's awful hard because now people are picking up on it and nothing's really come on my Instagram. I haven't said anything yet. And she had said about just even the amount of people that had started following her partner whenever they picked up that they weren't together anymore. So it's like people are following you who support you, but as soon as your boyfriend's single, they're going to steal him. You know, so it's like, they are. So you have to be careful what you want to share, including men.
But like, would you get a lot of people then like messaging you being like, oh, thanks for like sharing that and that helped me? I suppose there's like a benefit to doing it then, like. Yeah,
there'll only be like one negative comment out of 100, but it's usually that one negative comment that can impact you. I've definitely got more resilient over the years, but at the beginning I used to take it really personal and like get really upset over it. It's only in the last 10 months, I think, doing the work on myself that I've realised hurt people and that this will happen, but every so often they will catch you off guard.
Such a good phrase,
isn't it?
It's really good.
Thank you.
I like that.
It's not mine. I think it's Gandhi's or something. I don't know.
It's a sound. I suppose like going back to like before that all started, like why did you want to go to Australia in the first place? Like how did that come about?
I've always been a person who has felt like the problem was Ireland and not me. Anytime anything went wrong in life, I felt like this is Ireland, you know, this place is, are you allowed to say bad words in this podcast? Yeah. This place is a shithole and I need out of here and all of these things, and I just wanted to go travelling any opportunity I could. So anytime I came back from holidays, it was back to the negativity. And the last place on the list was Australia. I was teaching out in England and felt like all I did was live to work. And I just didn't want to teach anymore. I'd given up on teaching. I just felt like everyone had graduated from uni and settled down and I wasn't ready to give up the partying. And it was funny, even just driving up here this evening, going past the Holy Lands and stuff, I was like, those were the days, like they were the great days. But I just wasn't ready to grow up, and Australia was the furthest place away. I'd no interest in ever going before, but it was the last place on the list. And it took a long time for me to realise throughout my years there that the problem wasn't Ireland at all. It was me, and you could be anywhere in the world and not be happy. And my slogan now is happiness is not a postcode, because I realised when I was sitting on those beautiful beaches in Bondi watching the most unreal sunrises and having a really good life and good salary, that you can still be really unhappy. It's what you do internally and the people you surround yourself with.
And whenever you went out, did you go out on your own or did you go out with other people? Did you know people out there, or was it just...
Yeah, I went on my own, completely on my own. I've always been a person to do crazy stuff, as you might see on my Instagram. And I like to be different. So I find that pushing yourself over the fear barrier is where the best things in life can happen. But at that stage, there was no real Instagram. The only way to know what Australia looked like was Neighbours, watching Neighbours. And I didn't know what to do, but I just went into SDA Travel, RIP SDA Travel, and I think I put £50 on a flight and then started paying it off in installments and then took myself off. But I'd only intended on being there for a few months. Have any of you ever been to Australia?
No.
it's a really beautiful life. Like when you walk out there, I'm a big home bird as well, which is ironic. I get very homesick even on sleepovers, and I find that as soon as I landed in Australia, it just felt like home straight away. You just hear accents from over that, like from home. Everyone's in a better mood when the weather's good, but they also just like treat life differently. When I was a teacher there, like I was a teacher from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m, but then I was Caroline outside of teaching. Whereas when I was here, I felt like I really committed and married to my job. And not everyone's like that, but it really took over my whole life, and I'd feel guilty taking like a Saturday off or whatever. So I just decided that there's a better balance out there, and the way that the Aussies live is something that we could all learn from. It doesn't have to just be the sun, it's a mindset, and that's what I've carried with me this whole time and coming back home.
Yeah. Did you find it difficult meeting people out there whenever you get out?
Yeah, it's a hard place to meet people because there's different communities and groups, but a lot of people are traveling through Australia and not everyone's there forever.
Yeah.
I got permanent residency in my first year, which meant I could stay there forever, whereas most people can only stay 2 or 3 years. So you were constantly saying goodbye to people. And there was times where you just had to constantly reinvent yourself every couple of years and start all over again. And you might not be in the same mindset as everyone else, where they might just be here to party for a few months and then you're teaching on a Monday, so you can't go out in the Sunday sesh. So there was moments of loneliness, and that's where I set up my Sunrise Socials, which are now all over Australia every Saturday, and it's just for people to meet up. There's no cost. You just come down with a cup of coffee all over areas of now Sydney, Australia, Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, Ireland, Liverpool, all over Dubai, and come and meet friends. So it's for expats all over the world every Saturday.
What's an expat?
An expat is someone who has left their country to work in their occupation. So like a teacher from Ireland teaching in Australia.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sounds like a military type
Yeah.
term.
I think I
doesn't
learned
it?
that word out there.
Never heard
Backpacker.
that before.
It's like a fancy word for a backpacker.
You were saying there about like it being different in terms of like over here. It seemed like you sort of said as if it was more like career driven, like people, or like you're saying like as if people don't really switch off compared to over there. Like, sorry, but like, is it more like when you finish work, that's it, you have a life outside of work, whereas you feel like over here it's more, in the UK it's more like everyone's career driven in a way?
I think the difference between us Irish to anyone else in the world is we're over like compensating everything we do. We're very kind people, very selfless people. We would do anything for anybody, like most people, and that's why the Irish are so sought out for all over the world in employment. You know, everybody wants the Irish to work for them because we are such hard workers, but at what expense to our own health and mindset, you know. And I think that it's not a bad thing that we do really marry to our jobs, but we don't really have a huge life outside of it, and that's a big, like, that's me tarring everyone with the same brush. But I do think, you know, we can feel guilty taking a Saturday off. My mum's only just retired in her late 60s, and I mean, she'd say to me, I feel guilty, you know, just having nothing to do this afternoon. I'm like, Mum, you've worked your whole life, why do you feel this guilt? But there's always been that compassion within Irish people especially to help others and always feel like they have to keep going. So the Australian life kind of taught me that you can just do all those things, work hard, but also you deserve to be happy, because if you want to be the best version of yourself, you also need to take that downtime. And, you know, the Aussies are funny, like they'll say things like, oh, I'm taking a day off for life admin. And I was like, what is life admin? This sounds like class. And they'd say, you know, doing the washing or paying the bills, or I need to get the dog washed, and that's life admin. And I love that they actually dedicate a day for just getting stuff done. It's cool.
I literally had a weekend of life admin, like just past there. I did not do anything. People tried to like plan stuff. I was like, no, I'm Saturday, Sunday. Like we bought a house like 10 months ago, and there was a sky dish on the side of the house. Always bugged me. Every time I walked past, I was like, I'm gonna rip that sky dish off. And then on Sunday, I was like, it's time. Got the wrench. I was like, this thing's coming down. So when on Monday morning, it was really weird, because I got back into work and everybody was like, oh, how'd you go on this weekend? I'm like, just did life admin. They're like, oh. You're like, it's not a bad thing. Like it's I'm
an
now free.
Accomplishment. Yeah. You just know that you can like do the rest of your week at work knowing that the house is clean, the washing's done, that satellite's off the side of the roof, you know. It's a really beautiful way of living, and it just taught me so much. And I mean, people say, oh, you can say you're happier in Australia because the weather's good, but we had a really bad 2 years there. It's called La Nina, where it just rained for pretty much 2 years in Australia. And that's when the penny dropped for me, and I thought, God, maybe it's not the weather that's making me happy. Maybe it's that I'm not actually hanging around with people I've hung around with my whole life because I had to hang around with them because that's all I've known. Maybe it's like I'm choosing the things that I do better for my life. I'm not just trying to fit in and play GAA when I'm no good at it. I'm actually doing things like boxing and Muay Thai because I want to do it. And I'm getting up early. I never saw sunrise before I went to Australia. I would have come home with sunrise from a night out. Yeah. But getting up early and actually having that bit of your morning before starting your day is just golden. And like I say, I've then carried those elements back home with me to Ireland to realise that it wasn't Australia that was making me happy. It was the elements to your daily routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense though, because like I've always said Australia sounds class because I love the idea of like the sun, getting up early, coffee, a wee sea dip. But then like between my two between the job I'm doing now and my previous job, I took like 2 months off. And I don't think, like I always say, I always look back at it, I don't think I ever like lay in the morning. I was always up. You were going to do like sea dip, and like I had a mate I was always also off, and I was like, let's go sea dip and let's get coffee. And it was like a brilliant time. But now we're like back to like 9 to 5. And if someone said to me, do you want to do a wee sea dip in the morning? I'd be like, are you mad? I'm not getting up before 7.
You need to hang out with me. Yeah. I was in the sea this morning.
Nice.
Today's a big day to get in the sea, you know, on the 15th. Apparently the cure's in the water. This is such an Irish thing.
No,
on the 15th.
You ever heard
we
that?
actually had this conversation in work like a couple of weeks ago.
It's so
people talking
funny.
about getting the cure and all, and you're like, do you believe it or not? Like, and you're like, dunno. Like,
it's so funny. Like, it's definitely like a mindset thing, but apparently the cure was in the water only today, not tomorrow. So if you didn't get in, you're snookered. But it's muscle memory, and that's what I've realised after coming back to Ireland. Those first few weeks after Christmas, you know, when nobody wants to do anything, everybody's broke, and it was really dark and cold. I just remember thinking, this is miserable, and what am I doing? I was sleeping in past 9 o'clock in the morning and getting out of the routine of doing things, dragging myself to the gym, just feeling really like slouchy and lazy. And then I had to take myself back to what was it in Australia that was making me happy, and it was the getting up early, going for my coffee and my sunrise. And like for most of January in Ireland, there was no sun that came up. It was just a dark sky. But I said to myself, I'm going to do it. And I bought one of those sunrise alarm clocks. You can get them on Amazon. And it literally glows. The sun like rises in your face in the mornings, because I don't have my phone in my room. But I would usually like reach for my phone and scroll on social media for 2 hours and waste the start of the day. So I've made a conscious effort not to have my phone in my room. And this sunrise alarm clock just like brightens on your face, a bit like the Teletubby sun. And it's just like this lovely feeling in the morning. And even when it's dark, raining, snowing, ice, there's some mornings I couldn't even walk on the path, the footpath. It was that icy. But I said to myself, I need to commit to this every single day. So I just kept doing it. And you never regret getting up early, because it's that bit of the morning that no one else is up, like nobody. And you just have time to process your day, rather than, I mean, before I left to go to Australia, I was getting up, if I had left the house at 7:30, I was getting up at 7:15, shoving toast into my mouth, probably eating it while on my way to work, still trying to do my makeup while driving, not very safe, and getting to work and then feeling scattered. Whereas now it's almost like a sacred space in the morning where you just have time to yourself. You don't have to talk to anybody. I don't go on social media until 9 a.m. For work purposes. So I'm up from 5 and I have those 4 hours in the morning just to reassess things, and it's made a massive difference to my life.
Yeah.
And what about like going to Australia, like changed all these habits for you? Like how did that all happen? Like?
It's funny, like you can go two ways in Australia. You can continue to do the things that you're doing at home, only on a bigger level. I mean, there's a huge alcohol and drug problem and gambling problem in Australia with expats, backpackers, whatever you want to call them. And there's also the people that have found the best version of themselves. So it's what you choose to do. And I mean, for the first 2 years, I was partying like a mad one. Like, but it gets to a point in your life where you think, does this make me feel any better? And I suppose in the last year, I've done a lot of self-exploration. If any of you have hit your 30s, anybody in the 30 club here?
Not yet.
Guys.
Halfway.
God.
Halfway.
Halfway.
15.
You're looking well.
Did you get permission to come here this evening?
Mummy let me out for that.
Okay, so that makes me feel horrendously old. But when you hit 30, something changes. And I'm going to be 32 in a couple of weeks. and you just start to revalue like what actually makes you happy. And I gave up alcohol a year ago. This month it'll be a year. And I realised that all the things I love to do are the getting up early and the coffees and being around good people. I realised how there's radiators and drainers in your life. There's people that bring out the best of you and they're the radiators, and then there's people that suck the energy
Never
out of
heard
you.
that one before.
Yeah, radiators and drainers. I heard that from Mark
Fucking
Hart.
throwing
You
the quotes out
You
here.
looked at me there, and I definitely thought he's going to call me a trainer. You were like, wow.
You're the Instagram trainer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you reassess that in your life, and you have to make some like tough calls where you just start cutting out people in your life. I mean, there's people in my family that are drainers, and whenever
feel
I
like
see
that's
them,
blown my mind.
whenever I hear them coming, you know,
Tommy's going to be
for a
going
visit.
to door tomorrow and go like, guys, there's drainers and there's radiators. You're being so training right now.
It'll be the Friday drinks after work that you start telling all the ones like you're the drainer.
Here, bro, you're my radiator.
But yeah, I think that makes a massive difference in your life is who is around you. And there's times where I've just had to like ignore people and just cut them off, and they probably think she's a wicked one, but you have to protect your energy, because otherwise if you start letting people suck the life out of you, listening to their own problems, or you know, even just I became a bit of a counsellor for my friends, where I go for coffees with them. I'd end up always paying for coffee, and a couple of years into the friendship I'd think, geez, they've never asked me how am I. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you ever get friendships like that and you just think, what am I doing here? So I just made a big cut. When you hit 30 you just think no more. So 30 is a good age. When you hit it, come back and let me know. You've no more time for bullshit in your life.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on the drinking thing. So like giving up on drink, like why did you do that? And like what's been the benefits of like doing so? Like if you've done it for a year now, like surely you've noticed a big change in your life. Like
I had never intended on giving up alcohol. I just love going out with my mates like anyone else does, and I never had a problem with drink. I wouldn't have even drank a huge amount. I'd just go out and go to bottomless brunches. But I find that my hangovers were horrendous. Like the next day I would be barely fit to move. But more than that, from Monday to Thursday, and this isn't something that's easy to say, but I was severely depressed. You know, I would just be in my head a lot, and you know, I'd be in the gym trying to sweat out the drink, but in my head I'd be saying, you're useless, you're pathetic. I'd be overthinking conversations that I had in the bar that mightn't have even been a bad conversation, but I'd be overthinking and thinking, God, did I say more than I should have? Or does that person even like me? Or I haven't heard from that person in a couple of days. Has something happened? And then they might text you 2 days later like normal, but the anxiety would be so fueled. And I just find that I was severely depressed from drinking. My anxiety was through the roof. And then it would be the lead up to a night out again. Living in Sydney, every weekend you had the options to go out, and it would get to about Wednesday, I'd just be just about feeling right again, knowing that I was going out Friday night again. And then whenever you're starting to feel normal, the anxiety would come in thinking, I'm going to feel like this all over again in a couple of days. So the lead up to even going out was making me nervous. And it was my 31st birthday last year where I went out in Sydney for with the girls for a bottomless brunch, and I'd just broken up with my boyfriend. And that kind of mentality, I think as Irish, we, you know, it's part of our culture to drink. Whenever someone dies, we drink at a wake. Whenever you've been in a car accident, they give you a bit of whiskey for shock. Whenever you're sick, you get a hot whiskey. You know, it's celebrations, weddings, it's always fueled around drink. That's all we've ever known. And when I broke up with my boyfriend, the girls were like, come on, we're going on the sesh. And that was that's what you do. But like, maybe actually I should have sat down and just said, I'm really heartbroken, or I should have had a cup of tea with a friend. But I went out and I had a mad one on bottomless margaritas, and I came back. I was so sick, like sick as a dog, and went into my empty apartment in Sydney. My boyfriend had already packed up and moved back to Ireland, which was horrendous. Like at 31, I thought, you know, I might be getting married soon and I might have kids soon. And there I was back at square one. And I just remember standing in my apartment in Sydney, and it was dark. I'm 10,000 miles away from my family. I feel disconnected from my family because I've been away since the pandemic. I haven't seen them in over 3 years. And I just felt like, you know, I don't think anyone would care if I wasn't here anymore. And I remember looking out at the balcony and feeling suicidal. Again, not very easy to say, but drink can take you to very dark places. And over 50% of suicides are alcohol related. You know, and you know, I've lost friends to suicide. I know that a lot of those suicides started with a bad night out, going out on a mad one. And I'm just so thankful that I woke up the next morning. I did scare myself, but it wasn't enough to scare me from not drinking the next weekend. I'd actually made myself that sick with drink that I couldn't stomach drink the next week. But in my mind, even though I'd gone to that massive low of feeling suicidal, that wasn't stopping me from not drinking again. It was actually the thought of, I don't think I could stomach a drink this weekend. So I didn't drink the following weekend. And then the next weekend I had a hen party, and I thought, my stomach still doesn't feel right. Like, I think I could probably be sick. So that weekend I went out and had mocktails, didn't tell anybody because it's almost like a shame. I don't want to let people know I'm not drinking. They'll think there's something wrong with me, or I'm boring, or the worst for girls is they'll think I'm pregnant. And you know, you can't win. So I drank mocktails that night. I rang ahead at the bar and just let them know, look, I'm not drinking. I'm the girl with blonde hair. Just to let you know, please just pour me mocktails. They didn't ask any questions.
That's mad though, that like you feel the need to have to do that,
isn't it?
Like actually plan ahead and ring up the bar.
It's a shame. It's
That's
like
crazy, isn't it?
You know, if you told your friends you had a cocaine problem, they'd say, fair play to you, like, stay off it. But if you say you don't want to drink anymore, it's like, why? What's wrong with you? You're shit crack. So it's like a shame. And when I was out that night, you know, obviously the start, you don't want to be there. You're like, oh, for God's sake. And then as the night goes on and people start to pick up and stuff, you think, this is actually all right. And when it's time to come, like at the end of the night where you don't want to stay out any longer, everyone's drunk, it might be 9-10 o'clock at night, and then I do a wee Houdini and disappear and nobody notices. You realise that you've seen the best parts of the night, and nothing good comes past 11, 12 o'clock on a session. So I realised that was actually all right. I might try that again. And next thing I knew, it was a year later, I started to notice after a couple of weeks that my whole life I've been given 40% of my full potential. And since giving up drink, I am 100% of my full potential. I'm happier than I've ever been. I sleep better. I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't get depressed anymore the way I was getting depressed constantly. I don't overthink people and conversations I've had. I don't make any silly mistakes. I haven't kissed a frog in a really long time. And what else? And just I've achieved more goals in the last year than I ever thought I would, because I'm not hungover on a Monday and giving it a half-arsed attempt. So there's a lot to be said for it, but again, it hasn't been easy.
Is it a case that you don't go out anymore, or is it you still go out but you're not drinking on nights out, or else you're drinking, say, mocktails as you did before, or how do you manage it now?
At the beginning, I stopped going out, and I realised that was the worst thing you could do, because you're totally isolating yourself. And I'm still young-ish compared to you, not really. But I started just saying, oh, what's the point in going out? I can't go out. I'll just go to the gym, and that was really it, or go to the cinema. But you're not going to find your husband in the cinema, like. So I realised I had to start putting myself out there.
You never know.
You never know. I had to start putting myself back out there again, and that took a little while. And I mean, the first few nights out were horrendous. Like, you're just like, oh, doses. Like, even I met a friend of mine, and I hadn't seen her in ages, and she said to me, Caroline, and she had the fig hanging out of her mouth and like a bottle of WKD, and she's like, do you remember we went to the Prodigy 20 years ago? And I was thinking, what things come up in our heads when we're drinking? Like, she's thinking of the Prodigy 20 years ago. I was like, yeah, cool. But it takes a while to get back into it. And then when you find the right people and right environments, like I went to Ibiza a couple of weeks ago, sober for 3 days. That was a sight to be seen. Tell you what, I saw things nobody should see.
And you remember them as well.
That's the good. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is, like, you remember, like we had my hen. We had my stag like a couple of weeks ago, and a fella that came on it didn't drink. Joe, he doesn't drink. It's not for any other reason other than he's just like, he needs to get up in the morning. He has weans, and he's like, I'm taking the daughter to dancing in the morning. Do you think I want to be splitting sore head? But like, it's mad because he was able to come to football the other night and just basically be like, oh lad, you should have seen what happened. This boy came over to me at the Thirsty Goat and Terry and was talking like this, and I was like, right, okay, that's cool. I think it's like the good thing that you can recollect stuff and go, I did not make any like stupid mistakes. But then you've probably seen a lot in Ibiza that you probably want to unsee. Do you want to hear one story?
Yeah, go for it.
If you're listening to this and you're eating your breakfast, please turn off. I was on my way down to Cafe Mambo. Have you been to Ibiza?
No.
Ibiza, it's a mental place. I hadn't been there since I was 18, and the last time I went was on a mad sesh. I mean, alcohol, I've never touched drugs, but always drinking. And we were on our way to Cafe Mambo, and it's like the scenic sunset. Everyone goes to Cafe Mambo for sunset, and you go for a dinner before you go out for the night out. So we're walking down towards Cafe Mambo. It's beautiful. You can see the sun starting to come down. Everyone's in good form. It's the last night of the holidays. And I looked around, and there was this English lad standing across the road, and he was wearing a beautiful, like, nice shirt, holiday vibes, you know, cream, brown stripes. He had like nice cream trousers on. And I started to walk on, and I realised he's absolutely just shit himself, and the shit was coming all down his legs. And he was just standing there. He'd shit himself.
Oh my fucking god.
So you do see everything in Ibiza, the man per man.
Oh my god.
So that was before dinner.
But you probably wouldn't have took a second look at that if you weren't.
Honestly,
if you were
no one else had
drinking, like,
noticed but me.
yeah.
That's what worried me.
He's looking, man.
Cream
I thought he got
trousers
away
and
with it.
sweat.
Lovely brown stripes down them creatures. So much detail.
I know. Yeah, so there you go. People shit themselves.
Oh my God.
That's fucking
That's
stressful.
wrong.
I didn't eat my dinner.
Not surprised. Oh, that's brutal.
So like whenever you moved out to Australia, was it like, because obviously you're quite open about like your like struggles with like depression and anxiety and stuff, like whenever you left, assuming that was an issue that you had pre-Australia, whenever you arrived in Australia, did you almost find like it was like a temporary cure? Like when you first arrived, you obviously seen nice weather, beaches, all the good stuff, and you were like, this is it, I'm home, and then the trouble started to creep in? Or was it just always like when you arrived, did you always kind of bring that over with you and immediately realize this place doesn't cure everything? Or
It's a good question, actually. For the 7 years that I was there, for 5 years, I definitely sugar-coated everything, and you had the good salary. My school looked out over the Sydney Opera House, and don't get me wrong, like Australia is amazing. It's such an amazing place, but the issue wasn't with it. It was within me, and it was only when it came to the pandemic where I couldn't get home because I'm an Australian citizen. I was classified as an Australian citizen, and the government wouldn't let me leave. It was a mad story. I've talked about it before in my podcast, where my sister was with me. She was on a work and holiday visa, and we were both in Australia when the world shut down. And it seems so mental now, because you're like, Jesus, when you think about the way that happened. And she was forced onto by the government to get an emergency rescue plane back to Ireland.
that's mad,
isn't it?
That's mad. That,
I know.
like,
It feels like this isn't
Yeah.
my life I'm talking about. So I had to say goodbye to my sister. I mean, I fought. Like, I was like, I'm Irish. Like, I need to get home. Like, I have a passport. Here's my passport. I'm a citizen. And they were like, no, you're an Australian citizen. So if we let you go, then we have to let you back in, and we can't allow the virus to come back into the country. So you have to stay here. I was like, this is my sister. We need to go end the world together. Like, this is it's
The world
mental.
together.
That's
You know, when you thought it was the end of the world.
But like when you
Yeah.
actually look back at what COVID was, it was a bit mad. Like the way we all got on was just like, I remember sitting in the living room and Boris was like, we're shutting down. I looked at my man, I was like, what's going to happen now?
Me and Shay sitting outside McDonald's. Fucking people cracking up. We were at McDonald's. Like, there was talk of a lockdown, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And there was like, we were like, fuck it, I was going to McDonald's. I went to McDonald's.
One
And, like,
last
literally
hurrah,
a
one last
big
big tasting.
queue to the drive-through. And the way people went when McDonald's was closed, like, they're like, fuck,
That
going
was nuts.
mental.
Yeah, it was like the last day. Wasn't it the
It's so surreal, like.
to give the date and all,
No
and
more
people
Big
queuing
Macs.
out.
But like, that was such a big thing. You were like, fuck, McDonald's is closing. Like,
24 hours, 20%
shutting
McDonald's.
down.
But I even remember, like, I take the piss out of my ma all the time about this, because a week into the lockdown, we had like no food in the house, and Mum was like, what do we do? And I was like, obviously we go get food. Like, you either get COVID or we're gonna starve to death. What's your options here? So I got her in the car, and we went, and halfway down the road, not even like, we were on the main road, and she was like, no, you can't go on the main road, take the back roads. And I was like, what do you mean take the back roads? She's like, you'll get stopped by the police. I was like, we need to get groceries, the police aren't gonna go, nah. So I went on the main road, bombed down the main road, next minute police check.
Stop.
My ma was like, this is it, we'll get turned back. I was like, mother,
shot.
we need to eat. I rolled down the window, and the policeman was like, what's your purpose for being out? And my ma went into like full, you would have sworn we had drugs in the car. She was like, he's just taking me to Asda, I only need a few bits, here's my shopping list. And I was just like, we're
Oh
going
my
to get
goodness.
groceries. And he was like, right, go on ahead. I looked at her, I was like, are you freaking mad?
That is,
Chill out.
It's a mad world, isn't it?
Meanwhile,
Even,
across the pond, your sister's getting separated
I
from
know.
you.
I mean, but my story. I mean, whenever people talk to me about like how they couldn't say goodbye to loved ones and all, that's when I'm like, jeez,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
was the
It's a hit
real
home.
sad stuff. Yeah, saying goodbye to my sister was like, I felt like it was the end of the world, but in comparison to other people's stories, it wasn't. But it was when she was put on that emergency plane. I was left in an apartment by myself. You couldn't even go and see your friends, you know, like
Yeah.
that was their 5k radius rule. I spent my 30th birthday in my apartment. Only that I had my students on Zoom, like my classroom every single day online. That was a lifesaver because your head goes like you're in like an apartment not much bigger than this room, and like you've only got a balcony. There's a lot to be said about having a garden. You're not allowed, and it was mad. They even like shut Bondi Beach at one point where you couldn't get in the water, so they barricaded the water. You imagine like these people.
What? How do you even do that?
Mental. These people have spent their life, like Bondi Beach is their front garden. They need it for their head. And I just remember seeing the locals like climbing over the fences and getting arrested and all because they wanted to swim. Crazy stuff. But it was during that time that I realised, you know, what does matter in life? You've this money in the bank. You've all the nice clothes in your wardrobe that you don't wear because you're wearing the same tracksuit for like 3 months. You know, you can't travel. What matters in life is the people that are in your life. And that's where it really was the time for me to look at, what do I really want in life? Do I want this fancy lifestyle that I can put all over my Instagram and for people to say, God, Caroline's doing well for herself, isn't she? Or do I want to like go home and see my parents more than once like in my life again? If I had stayed in Australia, it's such a long journey and you don't have time to go up and see your family all the time in Ireland. It's a long journey home. It costs a lot of money. I might have only seen my parents 4 more times in their life, like if I'd have stayed there, and I'd already been away for so long. So I thought it's time to come home, reconnect. And it's not an easy decision to give up that life because it is a beautiful life, but things change in your life, priorities change, and I think the pandemic changed a lot for a lot of people, and I don't regret one bit of it. I feel like I'm a happier person. I feel like I'm more real on Instagram because it is just day-to-day life rather than a life that not everyone can achieve.
Did you feel like a pressure before COVID with Instagram and like what you were posting? Did you like, oh, this needs to be like classic selling the dream type of thing? No?
Well, when I first originally started, I was very real and honest, and then people start to give you their opinions of what you should post and what you shouldn't post. And even like some of your closest friends, like they'll be like, oh, I like that, but I didn't like that. Or maybe don't do that as much. And I'm such a people pleaser that I was like, all right, you're right. And then I started to not recognize myself after. I remember saying this, and it's a really embarrassing story, but when I hit 10,000 followers, my ego was so big I couldn't fit through the door. I was like, I am the dog's bollocks. Like Kanye West will know who I am soon.
Oh my God.
I was like, I am a county down under, you know? And it was so embarrassing. I just lost my head a wee bit and just kind of let it all get to me. Instagram mattered more than reality. I was posting things without permission of people, like pictures of my family, pictures of my friends, and just even being out nights out drinking. And like, you imagine like putting your video like round a pub in Sydney, and like people could be doing like drugs in the corner. I don't know what they were doing. I was in pubs like, and just like loaded and doing all these videos, and then having to go in to teach the next day, and you're kind of getting a look from your principal like, we all seen what was on your Instagrams, or just even me doing shots and then going in and teaching religion to the kids. Like, don't worry about my Instagram, it's what Jesus knows, you know. So yeah,
Jesus drank wine too.
so I lost my head a wee bit, and I'm not really sure what it was that brought me back down to reality. I think coming home for a visit to see my family and realizing that no one gives a shit what you post on Instagram. You're really not that important in people's lives, and if you post your coffee in the morning or you don't post it, people have their own lives and own shit to deal with. So like, you're really not that important. So I think that was really good to come back to earth again, and to know that Instagram could be gone tomorrow. It's what legacy you leave and what impact and changes you're making in your life. And that's where I'm trying to go now, is just help kids within the education system and do more mental health seminars, and use my Instagram for good purposes. Like, obviously I like to show my makeup and fake tan and stuff, but I do challenging things like spending a week with Wim Hof and pushing my mind to the limits to show people that your mind is a very powerful tool, but it also can be the ruining of you if you let it, because you can talk yourself into thinking that nobody loves you or cares about you. So you have to train your mind like a muscle, because that's what it is. It's muscle memory. So yeah, I'm trying to just be a better advocate and not be just like everyone else on Instagram.
Yeah. What would you say for like people who are planning on making, like, because a lot of people are moving out to Australia. It's like the thing, especially around our age now, where people have like graduated from uni and maybe been in a job for a year or two, and then they just like they almost just crack and go, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm away to Australia. Bye. What are your sort of tips for people who are making that transition, knowing that most people are running away, like from Ireland, essentially, like they want to get away, they want to like have a new life? What are your sort of tips for whenever people land off the plane and try and set their lives up? Would you say is like the number, well, it doesn't have to be number one, but like a couple of things that you'd recommend for people to keep in mind?
The biggest thing is that you need to give it 6 months. You're not going to have the life that you see on people's Instagram straight away. It's not going to be that easy to make friends, that you're going to have to push yourself out there. And even if you are in a relationship, to not rely on that other person to be your friend, to go and make your own friends. Or if you're traveling with a group of girls or boys, like go and make your own friends, because everyone's journey is going to be different and not everyone's going to want to stay as long as you. It's the best thing I ever did. And even though I was running away, it took me to go to Australia to find out the person that I am today. I don't recognise that girl that got on that flight 7 years ago. I have a thicker skin. You have to learn to stand up for yourself, because no one's out there to protect you. Your family aren't there. You can't ring them in the middle of the night in Ireland and say, Mummy, I don't know what to do. I'm in the chemist here and I don't know, something's wrong or whatever. You know, you have to learn to do these things. Or if someone's in work that's taking the piss out of you, because you will get that as well, where they know that we're good workers out there and they'll take advantage of you, and you have to learn to stand up for yourself and say, that's not part of my job description, or I'm not paid to do that. And these things can happen. So you develop a thicker skin, but definitely give it time, make friends in any opportunities you can. Go to like join a CrossFit gym, join my Sunrise socials, the likes of the what to do on a day-to-day basis or how to even start is very overwhelming. And I know that for me, it took me months of research to try and work out how much money do I need to bring, what visa do I need to go on, where do I find an accommodation, how do I find a job, where's the popular suburb in different cities of Sydney that other Irish or English people are going to be living in. So I created a 50-page downloadable ebook before I left, so that I could like leave that legacy in Sydney if I never come back to Australia, that it's there for people. It's like a handbook guide, because I made some serious mistakes over the 7 years. I got stroked 70 odd times from, you know, getting a car light fixed and thinking that it should be that price when it shouldn't have been that price, or just even the name of a man with a van. You don't have anyone out there, or you're like, you know, the way if you get stuck here or you break down, even if your mum or your dad's not home, your uncle or your granny's uncle's son can come and collect you. You've no one out there. So all those little things that matter, I've created in an ebook that you can download online. But the biggest thing is just give it a chance, and also to not feel like you have to go to Australia because everyone else is going. I get a lot of people coming to my Australian events saying, I'm not sure if I want to go to Australia. I'm kind of on the fence about it. It's just everyone else is going. And I say to them, don't go then. Australia doesn't have to be the place for you. Just travel. Like go on a weekend away to Prague, or, you know, spend a weekend at a retreat down south. Just go and see the world. It's the best education you'll ever get. It enriches your CV if you go and like travel with work and with your degree. And it just makes you a better person, I think. You appreciate your country more as well. You realise how beautiful Ireland is.
Would you say Australia is a good place for Irish people to go in terms of like the local Australian people? How do they take the Irish people coming around? Do they like Irish people, or are they sort of...
They do now. We came out in as convicts, like well, we weren't very liked a long time ago. No, we're very well respected. The Irish community is huge out there. Like there's GAA teams all over the place, and you'll always hear an Irish accent. And I mean, a lot of the Irish built the cities there. The construction over there is huge, and the education and nursing system, like there's a lot of Irish working there and doing us all proud.
And whenever you did come home after the 7 years, did you notice much change here from when you left?
Good question. Massive change. I think it's made it easier for me to come home. I think Ireland's had a big wake up call since the pandemic. A lot more people are looking after their health. A lot more people are going out for hikes. There's a bigger coffee culture. You know, even like going out for dinner or going for a coffee in the morning times, that used to be a luxury for me in Ireland, or we'd only go out for dinner on someone's birthday. It was a very special occasion. Now people are actually learning to actually part with their money, and not in a negative way, but we've always had this mentality of get married, get a house, you know, have a car, have loads of money in the bank, save. But we forget to live amongst all of this stuff. So it's nice to see people just taking joy in the simple things in life, or saying we're going on a couple of weekend breaks throughout the year rather than busting your balls all year for one big holiday a year and then waiting for the next holiday to be happy again. It's this mentality of if I'll be happy when. But now people are saying, yeah, we're actually going away this weekend, or we're taking a night in the Galgorm or whatever it is. So I really love seeing that. And I think within the mental health aspect, people are now talking a bit more. There's still a lot more to be done everywhere in the world, not just in Ireland, but we're definitely a bit more open and honest. Even you guys coming on and doing a podcast and having these conversations with people, like, this wasn't here 7 years ago when I left. So I think fair play to you as well, like giving people the platform to share their thoughts.
Yeah.
Is there anything that like you still think needs to change a lot here in comparison to Australia, that if you could change yourself you would? Like,
I think we definitely still have a huge culture around getting drunk at the weekend. I mean, I was part of it, a massive part of it. And I see a lot of young ones coming up now, and now there's the vaping and the drugs and the alcohol. And I really want to get into the education system very early in the primary areas and even in secondary. I wish someone had come in and told me, why don't you try other things to get, you know, thrills in life, like cold water therapy or going up for a hike or trying Muay Thai or committing yourself to something. Because all I had growing up was the GAA, and because I wasn't good at it, I just started drinking because I was like, well, I'm not good at that, so I've nothing to stop me going out and binging all weekend. But if you had something that you love, that maybe you would have that commitment to say, do you know what, like, I don't want to go drinking this weekend because I'm getting up tomorrow and I'm training, or I actually like going for a dip in the morning, and that's just as much of a high as getting pissed this weekend. So I think there's definitely a lot to be said about underage drinking. A lot of pubs are still letting in kids that are under 18, like allowing it to happen. And we need to change that, but I don't know how that's ever going to change. You know, it's...
What's it like in the schools? Like you were saying, like you go and do talks, like even from like speaking to teachers and stuff, like what's the sort of vibe there? Like, do they feel like it's the same problem, or are they sort of more backwards in it all? Like,
no, there's a huge mental health crisis at the moment, especially within the younger generation because of social media. These kids have no escape from what they're doing in the evening times. Like, there's bullying going on. Parents don't know that their kids are taking their phones to bed with them. I have kids coming into my class first thing in the morning, they've got black eyes with exhaustion, and I'll say to them, you know, what's going on? Sorry miss, I've been on TikTok all night, because they actually can't. It's an addiction. It's that next hit of, you know, refreshing the feed. These kids are being addicted to something, and these apps are allowing them to become addicted. The vaping is out of control at the minute. The kids are being attracted to these vapes because they're bright colours and different flavours and they look cool. They can put them in their pencil case and the teacher won't notice it looks like a highlighter. There's a huge drug problem at the minute. Kids aren't drinking anymore in the Holy Lands. They're taking drugs. So there's a lot to be done here, and it needs to be fixed. And there's a huge area after the pandemic of kids that are really suffering from the pandemic, still struggling to fit back into society and to socialise. A lot of them are behind the screens or gaming, addictions of that kind. So yeah, we need to really fix that. So it's gonna take a while to do that, but I think that's what social media can be used for, is a force of good, and showing them that it's okay, you're not the only ones that are struggling.
Yeah.
Is there much difference in like kids over in Australia compared to kids here?
It's funny, like, because those kids have everything at their feet, like the golden beaches as their front garden. And I mean, I look out the school window and the opera house there, and I'd be like, kids, look at what you have, like, and their parents are minted. I was in a private school and their parents are millionaires, like, so these kids are getting Bentleys for their 18th, and I'd be like, you're spoiled rotten. But it's
You
mad.
must
Money
have got
doesn't.
good Christmas presents.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, always got a good Christmas present. Miss McKenna was well looked after. Even if you weren't nice to them during the year, always sweeten up around Christmas time because that was when the presents came in. But
Nice.
it's interesting. Yeah, there's an element to it. But money doesn't buy happiness. These kids were the most unhappy I've ever seen. They're the most beautiful girls. They all look like Margot Robbie. Australian girls are stunning. They had everything going for them. They had great careers. They'd like beach houses in Byron Bay and Bondi Beach and, you know, houses in Europe. But that didn't make them happy. They were still riddled with anxiety, body dysmorphia from Instagram, you know, anxiety from drinking and drugs. And it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what you have. It's what you do with your life and how you choose to live it that matters.
Yeah. And you like touched on even like yourself, like obviously went through like a breakup, and then obviously like your sort of drinking and stuff kind of got to you as well. But like, was there any other stages where you kind of copped on this is not all it's cut out to be, and like what were the sort of like, was there any sort of simple steps that you took where say someone's listening to this right now and they're maybe feeling a certain way, but I almost like you don't realize, I think people do have like mental health issues and they kind of like be like, oh, be grand, like it's just I just felt that way, like I drank too much the other night, but like it's like no, you actually have a problem. Was there any like sort of simple steps you took or any sort of moments of realization when you were over in Australia or when you were back home?
It's interesting you say that because like I mean, I never walked around and said I have mental health issues, you know, or I'm depressed or I have anxiety. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me other than I overthought, or I'm too sensitive, or I get upset over people that I shouldn't be getting upset over. The biggest thing that I did that's very simple for any listener to do, and it's something that changed my whole entire life. I don't know if any of you boys have delved into it yet, but was breath work, doing a bit of breath work. I was invited down to this guy, Dino Gladstone. He's Dino from Bondi Rescue, if you've ever watched the show. I was invited down to one of his classes on breath work in Sydney. A friend invited me down and I thought, I'm not going to this rubbish like breath work, what are we doing here? But I was forced along anyways, and I went down and I thought, this is going to be full of witches, like this is woohoo, pure woohoo stuff. And I went in and it was in the evening time and he made us lie down on the floor and take a few breaths in and a few breaths out, doing a bit of nasal breathing. And then he did the Wim Hof method, which is 3 rounds of 30 breaths. Like it's a hyperventilating your body. So like for anyone listening, you're like like it's full on, like you're hyperventilating, and then you have to hold your breath at the top. And it's a mad feeling because in those moments your body can't think of anything else. It's just like trying to survive, because it's like, what have you done? You've like shocked your body into some sort of reaction. Your fingers start to tingle, your body starts to feel weird, and then you like, it's almost like a telephone direct line to your mind where it's like, hello, this is actually the problem that you've been having for the last 7 years and you didn't know about it. And I did this breath work. I was there 10 minutes, and at this stage I'd been in Australia 5 years, and within 5 minutes of doing it, my mind was telling me, you know, I need to sort out the relationship with my uncle that's dying of cancer in Ireland, and I need to go back to Ireland and be with my family, or I'll regret it the rest of my life. And it was like that, like where my problems in my life that I didn't even know were a problem, like I was just living my best life in Australia, they all just surfaced straight away. And I thought, God, well, if I had known that, I wouldn't have paid so much going to counselling for years, you know, trying to work out what's wrong with me. So if anyone's listening, I would recommend going on YouTube, beginner Wim Hof breathwork. You can do it in your house. It's free. Just lie down this evening and try 3 rounds of breathwork, and your life's problems are solved for that week.
The amount of people that said that does now, like Chris Suter was saying about it, like he was like talking about his struggles with anxiety, and he was like breath work, and he went to, is it a counsellor or like a whatever you call it.
Yeah, counsellor,
yeah, and then like Sinead is obviously massive in it as well, and then kegs, like you see everyone doing it and you're sort of like, like I'm like what you just said, I'd be like, oh, it just sounds like a load of shite, like not to be a dick, like, but you know what I mean.
I think the breath work thing, it's funny because the more I hear about it, the more I'm like interested in it, and I've started like the past maybe 2 months I've started listening a lot to your guy Andrew Huberman. And like it was little things that he started to say, and you're like, maybe I'll give this a try. Like going out, like I'll go out in the morning, like not like go on my phone, I'll go out in the morning, just stand in the garden, and it's so weird, but like that sort of like moment, that sort of couple of minutes of like natural light, I actually find really like sort of helps me. But it's like, I think the reason why I copped onto it was during that time where I took off them 2 months, I was in the sea like pretty much every day. And I remember saying to you, was it you? I remember going like, lad, you honestly need to just try it. It's actually really cool. And like I noticed after like a week, it was like, what an utter pile of bollocks. But then it turned into like going with your mate for a bit of crack. Then after a few weeks, I just noticed I was like just getting in straight in, not like pussyfooting around, like just straight in. And then afterwards, I was like, I feel class. I think it's like giving things a go.
100%.
And even it's interesting that you touch on, like I was actually talking about this the other day with someone, and I sort of said, I feel like a lot of people don't understand the problems that they have because, and maybe it's a culture thing here or it's just all over the show. We almost like keep ourselves busy, too busy, where it's like you get up in the morning, you go to work, you maybe football afterwards, you just keeping yourself so busy. And then when you actually do have like a weekend off, or like you do like the likes that you were saying, like the breathwork stuff, you actually sit back and go, holy shit, I have a lot going on and I feel this way and I need to sort out it. So it's interesting that you say that, like the breathwork kind of, because a lot of people probably look at it and be like, you're just breathing, like in a weird way.
Did you spend a week with the Wim Hof guy?
Yeah, so I went over to Poland in February in the middle of winter and spent a week with him. It was hectic. Like I'd been doing 2-minute ice baths and thought, I'm ready for this. And as soon as I got there, he literally made us go into a frozen over lake. The snow is beaten down. You're literally, you have to go barefoot, so you're walking in the snow and your feet are raw. And then he goes 10 minutes, so 10 minutes in the lake was the first task.
I done that, the one in the Galgorm, and
I
I fucking was out straight away. It was like
and that's what he made us. It was like military stuff where he had us all in a circle and we were like holding one another and like treading water, trying not to drown. And
you're proper like swimming in it, like you're not just standing.
No, you'd be screwed.
I'd die. I'd actually die. Like.
Tommy jumped in the pool in Menorca. It was like more than 1 meter. He literally, me and him standing, he's just bobbing. I'm like, all right, mate. He's like, how do I like keep myself afloat? We were like, we may need to call someone.
Oh, you definitely would have died on this. I think the hardest part was at the end of the week of challenges, you were doing mad stuff, and it's mad where your mind can take you. But he makes you climb a mountain for 5 hours in the snow, and girls are just in bikinis. There was only a few girls did it. It was mostly men, and guys were in trunks, and we had to hike a mountain. There's photos on my Instagram you can see where we literally have a backpack on. I'm in a bikini, I've got a hat on, and I'm hiking up this mountain for 5 hours. And this, like, we've got big boots on and spikes in our boots. It's that thick of snow, and you just know that. Like, I mean, I remember looking down and my hands were blue. It was so cold. But Wim Hof trains you to like tell your mind that your body's warm. So I was just breathing. So I was doing one foot in front of the other, and I was doing the breath work, the Wim Hof method of. And I just had to keep doing this, and my chest started to warm up and I didn't feel the cold. Now I could see that my body had felt the cold because I was going blue, like, and anytime someone started to drop or like fainted, because people were collapsing all over the place.
Has anyone died doing this?
Yeah.
What?
My mum googled it the night before I left to let me know.
Yeah.
Typical
like,
Irish mother.
I know, the night before.
Irish mother.
2 people died on this last week, Caroline. I was like, Jesus. But you're walking and then you see other people starting to drop, and then in your head you can hear the little voice coming back saying, you're going to fail, you're not going to make it. And then you think, I can't even look at that. And you just get the blinkers on, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. And that's the way we should really approach life, is just 1 foot in front of the other. And I couldn't believe it when I got to the top.
You just
no,
there?
like we like help one another out, like,
right.
but you can't let. It wasn't like that Everest thing last week where people climbed over one another. No, you do help one another, but you can't let it be the reason you stop. Yeah. So whenever I got to the top of the mountain, there's a video of me standing at the top, and I'm literally in my shorts and top. It's a bit like what you say about the sea dipping. I look back now and I'm like, who is that nutcase at the top of that thing? Because I haven't done an ice bath in a couple of weeks, and if you don't keep practicing it, your mind and your muscle memory doesn't want to do those things anymore. But I got into such a good place there where I was like, I can do anything. Yeah. And then that's when I booked Kilimanjaro. So regret that.
What attracts you to things like that? Like what made you Google Wim Hof and be like, because obviously I've heard of Wim Hof, like the breathing techniques, and like I've seen it all over social media. but nothing in my mind has been like, I'm gonna Google this geezer. Oh, he's in Poland.
Yeah,
Google Maps.
It's funny. I don't want to be like, I hate being called an influencer. I don't want to be like other people on Instagram because I couldn't relate to them when I was struggling. I like to be different, and you'll see, like, I don't go to these social media awards or social media gatherings or events that you'll see a lot of bloggers and stuff go to, and no disrespect to any of them, but I'm not trying to follow the flock. Like, I'm trying to lead and show my students and my followers, if there is any followers, I don't know if it's just students or who's listening, but that, like, you can be the best version of yourself. Like, I'm just trying to help other people. I'm not trying to fall into other groups. So I like to do different things. I like to be different. I've never been a girly girl where I've just gone and done what everybody else has done. I like to challenge my body and my mind. I like to meet cool people. I like to, I've just always liked to do things different. And after doing the Wim Hof thing, it's like an addiction where you think, God, if I can do that, I can really do anything. So then I just go for the next challenge. I think it's healthy in life, no matter who you are or what you do, to always find a next challenge. Don't just settle at, well, I've done Wim Hof, so I can kick back my feet for the next 70 years. What's next? Like, bring it on.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was it? I can't speak. What was it like after you done that week? Like, what did you take from it? Were you like, fuck, I'm class? Like, what was it like?
I came back from it, first of all, thinking, is my mother going to speak to me? Because she did not want me going. But yeah, just a case of your mind can take you to any place you want to. I just unlocked a totally new part of my brain that I didn't know existed. It's a life-changing experience. I recommend anybody, even if you've, like, there was people there that had never done ice baths before. There was a woman there who'd finished her chemo treatment the week before. I mean, she barely had enough white blood cells in her body, and she put her body through that, and she got through it through her mind.
Did you have to sign a waiver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
the
read
people
it.
actually die going, like doing his thing.
Google it. Like,
and
people have
just
died.
sign up, they're like, if I die, I die. Like.
Well, the first day, like, we had to like jump off a 7-meter waterfall into the snowy waterfall, and one person broke their ankle, and another person shattered their tailbone. Oh, it's mental stuff, but it's cool as
Was
well.
there no point of that you were like, don't know if this is a good idea?
I mean, yeah, I was a bit scared. Like, and you get cool opportunities from it. Like, the BBC contacted me about a show they're doing, Survivor. I don't know if you've ever heard of Survivor. They were like, we want you to like audition for Survivor after seeing your Wim Hof stuff. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Orange just Googled, at least 15 people have died
Oh my
while
God.
attempting the Wim Hof method. 4 practitioners drowned in 2015 and 2016.
Jesus.
Yeah. Flip.
What all did you do then? So you don't
Stay alive.
I want to hear a couple of these things. Just,
So
No, you're
we
just
just jumped
like-
off a
you just-
waterfall like as if it was no big deal.
my mum was sugarcoating it, or else like another 13 people probably died on my retreat. I don't know. She'd said there was only 2. You have to just do really mad stuff like jumping into the waterfall. It's freezing cold conditions, and what he makes you do, which is different to home, is, you know, when you get in a nice bath here, the first thing you do, you get out and you like put your clothes back on and warm up. He doesn't let you do that. He makes you warm up your body yourself. So he does the Wim Hof horse stance. You're gonna think I'm a nut job, right? And at times I thought I was too. Like, I said, if my mum walks in right now, she'll think I'm in a cult. But like, he makes you stand as if there's literally a horse between your legs, and you get down into a big squat. It's called the Wim Hof horse stance, and he makes you go like this. Hoo! Ha! Oh, right, and you've like no clothes on other than your bikini, and you're trying to warm your body up for 20 minutes before you're allowed to put your clothes on. But it's mad, after a few hoo-has, your body warms up.
Fucking Santa Claus.
Yeah, I know.
Santa Claus almost made it.
Wim Hof, Santa Claus. Yeah, it's crazy stuff, lads, but I made it.
Would that be like the modest thing you've done then, or is there anything else that's done there?
I was with I spent a week with Tony Robbins 2 weeks ago. Did a
Fuck
fire
off.
walk. Yeah,
What the fuck, like?
he's nuts as well. Like, and then Kilimanjaro.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, he made you like walk
He's
in
just
fire.
like no big deal. Like.
He's cool.
He's massive. He's like fucking like
He's
a
like
big
7 foot. Like, he's a
I
giant.
don't mean like in terms of like how famous he is.
Oh, right. Oh, he's massive too.
How'd that come about? Like,
I was meant to see him in Sydney a couple of years ago, but lockdown happened and he wasn't vaccinated, so he couldn't get into the country. So I went to see him in Birmingham there, and like, yeah, he made you do mad shit. Like, but again, he does the cold water plunges every morning, and he has this famous quote. If you ever hear Tony Robbins speaking, he's all like, "This here," and he says, you know, "This Tony Robbins wasn't born. I made this Tony Robbins." So like, he says about like he has built the Tony Robbins he is today through programming his body. He starts every morning with a cold water plunge. He does all this like gratitude list, all these things. He only bees around good people. So there's a lot to learn from that.
So not something with him, like he was told he had like a brain tumor or something.
Yeah,
and
he has a brain
He didn't
tumour.
go to like
Get it seen.
they were going to cut it out of his head, and he was like, no, I'm not doing that.
And he still has it. Like
Yeah,
since he
not
was
like-
17, he has a brain tumour. And he just keeps going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mad
And it
though.
reduced in size when he started training his mind.
Yeah, I think he was talking about it in Joe Rogan or something. Like, I
Yeah.
remember hearing the story. But that's crazy.
Class, isn't it? So I'll let you know if I survive Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Yeah, explain
Say
that.
first.
That's your next venture, and like, well, this podcast will probably go out in the next 2
Next
weeks.
week, will it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
next week. So
So, yeah.
you'll be. That's the 24th.
This could be the last
this will go out.
podcast you're ever on.
Oh my God.
Holy fuck.
Oh my God, leaving a legacy here.
If your ma listens
Oh
to
my
this,
God, imagine.
she'll be locking the doors
We'll
and
be
changing
signing
it.
their clips and all. Yeah.
Podcast. Hopefully not. Yeah, I'll be climbing Kilimanjaro on the 11th September. I'm flying to Africa for that. It's going to take me a week to climb. I have to battle with altitude sickness and cold and crazy stuff, like even weird animals that I've been told about while climbing. But I'm doing it for PIP Suicide Prevention Charity. I'm going with a group of followers. I put it up on my Instagram to see if anybody wanted to join me. There's people as mad as me who want to join, so I've got 20 followers coming. And we just hit our target of £10,000 for PIP Suicide Prevention Charity, but we're wanting to raise as much as we can. So anybody that's listening wants to donate to the cause. And I was going to say
we'll
something
put the
grim.
link
Put the link, yeah.
the bio
Thanks, guys.
below the video and
Still
Spotify
one
and stuff.
spot
I
also.
say you
that
get 20.
Sure, Ross is going.
You can get 20. I was just gonna say you can get 20 followers to climb Kilimanjaro. We can hardly get 20 followers to reply to our story. That's
I'll reply
class.
to your story.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Like, so what made you? Was it Wim Hof doing that stuff that you came back, and what made you pick Kilimanjaro? Like, what brought that about?
I think I never wanted to do Everest because I've seen too many documentaries on Everest and it seems to be
Fucking
so
hell.
mental. I don't know if you've ever
Sounds
watched
like
it.
your type
Yeah.
of thing, though.
I know. Well,
Fucking people
like it
once
could be next.
Kilimanjaro, like, you know.
I know, like base camp. My friend's doing base camp
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks. But I saw that documentary. Have you ever seen Finding Michael documentary
Oh, is
about
that your
Spencer
bio?
Matthews?
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but
I didn't
heard
realise
about
how
it,
many bodies are on Everest.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
And they're perfectly preserved and all, aren't they? Because
Yeah.
it's cold.
They're like Icemen, yeah.
My God.
Mental. So I don't know if I'd ever do that. But Kilimanjaro appealed to me because I remember watching it like 15 years ago. Do you remember Comic Relief?
Yeah.
They did it at Chris Moyles, Cheryl Cole. That's where she got malaria, but we'll not talk about that. Gary Barlow and all. I remember it being beautiful. And what's really cool about it is when you get to the top of Kilimanjaro, you're like do the ascend on the summit night. You get up that night and then you're there for the sunrise. And sunrise is a big part of my life now. So I just thought, how amazing would it be to reach? It's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. To reach that at a sunrise and be able to say I did that for charity. So I'm doing that in honour of my friend Natalie that I lost last year. And yeah, it's a really special, beautiful moment. I like to always challenge myself, see different parts of the world. And yeah, I just want to keep challenging myself. I don't know what else I'll do next.
That's what I was
Hopefully.
going to ask you. What are you going to do
I
whenever
think you should
come
just
down?
chill out for a
I
while.
know.
Go on a nice holiday or something.
I need a good night's sleep, to be honest. It's been a mad year, but no, it's all good stuff.
That's unreal. Well, we wish you all the best.
Thanks, guys.
That's mad, and we'll be following. And obviously, we'll put anything in the link in the bio if you want to donate and stuff. Please do. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks
It's
for
been mad.
having me, and thanks for being patient. Sorry it's taken so
No,
long.
it's
Now you
grand.
realise I've been busy with Wim Hof and
Fucking
Tony
hell.
Robbins, and
Yeah.
now it's time to see you guys. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad I got to come up and keep doing all the amazing work. I love what you're doing, and
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
hopefully this isn't my last podcast.
Well, thank you very much. We'll obviously put everything in the description. If you don't follow already, go and follow Caroline. Her latest adventure up Kilimanjaro will be right now. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks,
All the
guys.
best.